Every single game in the Zelda series is packed full of secrets and references, from pop culture nods like a photograph of ancient robots reenacting the famous pose from Titanic, to in-universe Easter eggs like a doll of Ganondorf's horse found in the corner of Romani's room in Majora's Mask 3D. Finding these little secrets is one of my favourite things about the series. So, I've been covering some of my favourite, relatively obscure Zelda secrets and references in this mini-series on the channel, imaginatively named Zelda Secrets, where before we've talked about everything from little Majora's Mask references in Breath of the Wild to the hilariously impossible secret ability of Twilight Princess's Dr. Borval. So, subscribe if you haven't already for more Zelda content, and let's get into it. In contrast to how blood-curdlingly terrifying Majora is for most of the game, a powerful, dark entity which uses the mischievous Skull Kid like a puppet, bent on bringing destruction to the land of Termina and its people, the showdown against the mask itself is strange to say the least. After Link summons the 4 giants to stop the moon from making landfall, the mask drops Skull Kid like a used up tool and enters the moon itself to force itself past the giants. It's inside of the moon that the game's final battle takes place, in a surreal room of psychedelic colours. The fight is broken up into 3 forms: the mask itself, accompanied by long, tendril-like growths, Majora's incarnation, an insane, maniacal creature on stick-thin legs, and finally Majora's Wrath, a more humanoid appearance with a complete head and flail-like arms. While all forms exemplify the sheer madness of Majora, the incarnation in particular is infamous for just how crazy it is. It sprints around the room, clucking like a chicken, performs jumping jacks, and breaks out into various dances like a pirouette or even the moonwalk, which I suppose makes sense considering where the fight takes place. While for most of the incarnation's strange moves it'll just squawk or screech, it seems to sing while it performs the pirouette, 4 notes that might sound familiar. It's almost identical to the level 9 theme from the original Legend of Zelda. It could be a coincidence, but considering how often Zelda games reference and remix older music, I doubt it. It's incredibly hard to hear in game, but it's a brilliant little nod to the first game in the series. Across Breath of the Wild's Hyrule, Link can find various editions of the Rumour Mill, articles documenting local stories and, well, rumours. They're written by a character called Tracy, who travels Hyrule in search of gossip to write on, and during the game she's found in Gerudo Town, listening and talking to locals, especially interested in the town's trouble with the divine beast of the desert, Vanaboris, which stalks the sands, threatening locals with powerful bolts of lightning. After Link first meets with Riju, he can find Tracy on a rooftop near the Noble Canteen, staring out into the desert. She mentions that she's taking notes on the Divine Beast, as it's the talk of the town, and could make her some serious money. According to her, the beast generates its electricity in the 2 humps on its back, and there might be a way for someone to enter it through an access point below the tail, but that it's too high up, and the lightning makes it dangerous. Not only does Tracy give us some useful intel on Vanaboris, as pointed out by Azazel1661, she also drops what is most likely a Star Wars reference, suggesting that if someone entangled its legs and tripped it, it'd work out really well. This is almost certainly a reference to the Battle of Hoth, where Luke Skywalker comes up with a plan to take down the seemingly near invulnerable AT-ATs, giant quadrupedal combat vehicles, by using their speed as harpoons and tow cables to entangle the walker's legs, causing it to trip over and leave its weak spot exposed. Considering the similarities between Vanaboris and an AT-AT, both being heavily armoured, 4-legged walker vehicles with powerful laser projectiles, it's probably the case that Tracy's not only a rumour-monger, but an avid Star Wars fan too. It's well known that in The Wind Waker, Phantom Ganon's blade hides a secret. The Spectre wields a great sword apparently made from the same ghostly black and blue material as the Phantom itself, though featuring translatable Hylian text, which reads Zabora Gabora. If you've played Majora's Mask, you'll know that Zabora and Gabora are the two blacksmiths who work in the mountain smithy, found in the foothills of the icy Snowhead Mountain. This is most likely just a neat Easter egg for those who take the time to translate the Hylian text on the sword, and probably doesn't mean anything significant in the story. However, the text found on the blades wielded by Ganondorf himself might. It was suggested in the comments of a previous episode by RwanLink that I should discuss Ganondorf's swords, but for the longest time I simply thought that the text translated to genuine or real thing rather than anything particularly interesting. This is true for the English releases of The Wind Waker. The text on the swords translates to honmono, Japanese for genuine or the real thing. However, in the Japanese version, and in the HD remaster of the English game, the swords instead translate to something far more fitting, Kotake Koume, which are of course the names of the evil Gerudo witches, Kotake and Koume, who combine to form Twin Rover. This is far more apt for Ganondorf's swords. Rather than simply saying the real thing, which doesn't really mean anything, having the names of his surrogate mothers ties this older, more reserved iteration of the King of the Gerudo back to his origins. It's fitting, too, for a man supposedly driven insane by the isolation of his people in the harsh, burning desert, to honour the matriarchs of this tribe on his personal weapons. Hyrule Encyclopedia goes a step further, suggesting that Ganondorf wields two swords, one engraved with Kotake and another with Koume, which is an incredibly cool image, though not backed up by the translations in-game, where both swords feature both names. Either way, there's a little bit of speculation on why this translation was changed in the English release, found in the description below, but regardless, it's a brilliant connection between this aged Ganondorf and the witches who raised him, countless centuries ago. A dystopian counterpart to Hyrule, Lorule is what is left of a kingdom without a Triforce, a land which destroyed its sacred artifact in an attempt to stop the endless conflict its temptation caused. Ironically, this decision left Lorule in ruins, the very earth split by bottomless fissures, and the lands infested by monsters. To survive in this drear world, the inhabitants of Lorule become increasingly defensive and hostile, many resorting to theft as a means to survive. However, one group, found in Thieves Town, instead look to the land's monsters for salvation, noticing that, in this ruined kingdom, the monsters often have better lives than the people. The members of this group, led by a man who appears to be the Lorulian counterpart to Sahasrahla judging by his staff, wear masks to try and fit in with the world's monsters, with each member wearing a different mask. While the Elder himself wears a simple mask resembling a fanged red skull, the followers wear more interesting ones, which actually all reference various characters from A Link to the Past's Dark World, on which Lorule is obviously heavily based. This girl with pink hair wears a mask resembling the Bully, one of the first creatures Link encounters in the Dark World. The blonde follower wears a mask resembling a Hinox, a common enemy in the Dark World, and another wears a green snouted mask referencing the owner of the bomb shop. The old woman wears a mask resembling the owner of the digging game, and it's possible that this bird-masked man is referencing the bird in a cave, which gives Link a clue on where to find the Quake medallion. Finally, the shopkeeper found at the lake wears a mask which resembles the owner of the shooting gallery. Not only this, but he also references the original Zelda too, mentioning that he says the phrase "Ei Liu Nitemos Yub" for good luck. When reversed, this reads, "Buy something, will ya?" The line spoken by the shopkeepers from the NES title. As the moon approaches Termina, the inhabitants of Clocktown process their impending demise in different ways. Muto, the head carpenter for example, at first mocks those who believe the moon will really fall, calling it a groundless theory and that people are being ridiculous by panicking. However, by the night of the final day, all carpenters but Muto have fled, and the chief stands defiant, daring the moon to fall on him. One of the best reactions to the final day is that of the owner of the Swordsman School, found in West Clocktown. Link can train at the school with a log slicing minigame, open day or night, earning him a piece of heart if he scores highly enough. On the third day, the teacher explains that rumours are spreading suggesting that the moon will fall, but that as long as he is around, nobody should fear. He claims that he'll cut the moon into pieces, as to teach swordsmanship, one must be a master swordsman themselves. He says that on this day, he'll only teach until nighttime. Despite the Master Swordsman's brave speech, if Link returns to the school after midnight on the final day, he'll find it abandoned, with a sign where the teacher once sat, explaining that he's taken a vacation for a short while, asking that nobody look for him. But this isn't true. Behind the sign is a wooden door, which Link can cut apart to reveal a hidden room filled with pots. And the swordsman, cowering in a corner. If Link tries to talk to him, the teacher will mutter, "I'm scared, I can't take it, I don't want to die." The swordsman's reaction to the moon falling isn't particularly obscure, but it's one of my favourite little secrets in Majora's Mask, a game which already excels at humanizing and developing its characters. Despite his outward bravery, the swordsman was just as terrified as all the others, which is understandable considering that his whole world is about to end, and even with his skill with a sword, he can't do anything to stop it. I love these human reactions to tragic events in Zelda, like the Hylian soldiers cast suddenly into darkness in Twilight Princess, lost and alone in a waking nightmare. The swordsman wears the mask of a brave warrior, ready to save the world from a cataclysmic end, but in truth is just as scared and helpless as Clocktown's other citizens. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, leave a like or subscribe if you haven't already for more Zelda content. Cheers guys, and I'll see you next time.